Hello, and welcome to what's happening at the Tavern for this week. I'm going to look a little bit sweaty because I'm here in a closed room. It's 27 degrees, I just checked. So apologies if I'm looking all wet and gross, but I'm going to live with it. I just had a shower, so I'm feeling okay. And you can't smell me, so there's that as well. I don't know what's happening with the lens of my camera. You can see that it's pulling out the lights that are in the background there. I think there might be some stuff obscuring it a little bit, but it is what it is. This is what's happening at the tavern, not what's happening with my camera, so I will just move on. So what's been happening this week? There's been a few things that I've been up to. Primary thing that I've been doing is world building, because I think excuse me, let me just hydrate there. I've put a bit of a creative roadblock in front of myself, I think, with starting to actually build out sort of the world for a prototype, a proof of concept that I'm working on, and build that into something larger. And that was the thing that I really wanted to conquer this week. I really wanted to get to the other side of that, to feel like I had broken earth on some things. And I'm finding world building for game design a fascinating thing, because in the past I would think of world building as, well, how does this world work and who's in it and what's happening and what's cool and what's some charts of things. But it's not about that. It's about going back to core focus. What are your touchstones and what is the feeling that you want to replicate for the player? How do you want them to feel? And I find that to be a fascinating challenge. So the thing that I'm working on is a space trading game where, you move from place to place, basically taking that sort of elite loop of I pick up this and I take it there and I sell it and I get money. It's something that we've seen a lot, and I think it's a fun model. I want to see what I can do with that. But I was thinking about, well, what's the core touchstone for that? And in the past, the point that I've started with is Alien, because Alien's aesthetics and Alien's world it feels very real and feels very grounded. It's always pointed to as something that feels real, because the set building is exquisite. If you haven't played Alien Isolation, I cannot recommend it enough, because it takes a lot of that aesthetic and surfaces it for you as a player. And Alien as a film, the thing that people always bring up is it's truckers in space, and it has this feeling of people just doing a job. One of the characters that you really see that with, and I think it's just exquisite, is Yaphet Kotto, who sadly we lost this week. Vale Yaphet Kotto, who was survived by an incredible body of work. But his character in Alien is one of the ones, alongside Harry Dean Stanton, what a cast. You see in them, they're just people just trying to get a percentage and do their job. But the feeling of the world is also, there is a very oppressive corporate feel to it, and I don't quite want to replicate that in a game, because it's not fun. We can go outside and feel the corporate boot on our neck if we want. We can look at all the bills coming in the door. So I actually went off and I thought about that, and I thought about, well, what about the trucker half of that equation? Because when it comes to sci-fi references, and this is kind of spinning out of a bounty hunter prototype that came out of the project from last year that I'm also working on as well, but I think there's another thing I want to play with first, which is this space trading thing. And so for the bounty hunter side of things, my reference points were The Expanse, my reference points were Battlestar Galactica, the remake. But The Expanse especially, Firefly a little bit, seeing as there's something in there, and yes and no. But for a space trading game, they're not really relevant touch points. They allude in The Expanse to the jobs that they're taking in order to actually make money, but that's all off screen. It's something that happens elsewhere, so not super relevant. But in the mid to late 70s, there was a real fad of trucking films. The mythology of the long haul trucker was explored, and they were kind of elevated to this mythic status. And there's something really fascinating there, because long haul trucking is ultimately, it is a thankless, it is a lonely, it is a long hours job. It's hard. It's a hard job. But at the same time, it's so important. The flow of goods, the flow of stuff that we need, like let's not put goods on it, it's stuff. The stuff that we need gets to where it's going thanks to the work of long haul truckers. It's vital. It's the arteries really of industry in the country. And so I sat down and I watched Convoy, which was a really interesting film. I picked it up years ago. Well, not years ago. Yeah, it would have been a couple of years ago now. But I hadn't sat down to watch it. And there are some aspects of the film that haven't aged really well, but you know, you can expect that from a movie that was made in the late 70s. It was overall a really good film, great cast, great performances, and I got something out of it. I'll talk more down the track about what I got out of it, but that's been part of what I've been doing. I've also been following up my notes from the VO Summit, typing them up, turning them into actions, next things that I need to do in order to leverage that information. Because information in and of itself is great, but unless I turn that into actions, unless I catalyze it, it's not super useful. And one of the things that came out of that I wanted to talk about briefly is there was a point that someone made, which was that you should treat self-care the same way that you treat going to the gym. And I thought that's such a great point, because while I've been working on the stuff that I've been working on this week, and I've been doing a few other things, I've been starting some sound design research as well around how to use specific plugins. There's this voice in my head constantly saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. What about this? What about that? Because I'm not unique. We all have incredible demands on our time that we can conceive of. We can think of things that we want to do that are even strategic things. Far more of them than we have time available. And I thought about it and I thought, well, hang on. How about I realized that I've kind of been hammering away at myself a little bit with this voice. And instead of thinking that, why don't I be kind to myself and concentrate on, yes, I've done this thing, which is strategic. I have moved forward in this area, which represents a pretty significant roadblock, a pretty significant stopping point that I had created for myself because of the fear of moving into a new creative space, the fear of sucking. So why don't I celebrate that instead? It felt good. It felt good, I tell you. So that's a takeaway. Like if there's a takeaway from this week, it's be kind to yourself. Practice self-care like you practice going to the gym. Build that muscle. Now, if you struggle with that kind of advice and you find it a little bit woo-woo, going back to the work that I did with the incredible Christine Olle, here's why you want to do that. Because otherwise you will spend energy that is not serving you. You will spend it in beating yourself up, and that doesn't help you. So you will tear yourself down with that energy. You will spend it not in a way that serves you, but in a way that works at cross purposes with your other goals. Why do that? Instead, be kind to yourself. It is, from a pragmatic point of view, a much better way to spend your energy. So there you go. One other thing that occurred to me this week as a bit of a free tip is, in the past, I've used multiple email addresses for different things, and I'm in the process of rolling up an old email domain that I use in Google Apps for Business, and I have multiple accounts for different purposes. I'll put a little bit of a note on this down below the video here where you're watching it. But there is a trick that I had forgotten about for years, which is you can put your email address, so for me, that's Kevin, Kevin. I'm Kevin at tavernofvoices.com. After Kevin, I can put a plus, and then I can put whatever word I want in there, and that email will still go. The email server will still send it to my primary address. Why would you want to do that? Well, because once that email comes in the front door, I can filter it based on what that additional thing is. I can look for that and go, oh, that's an accounting email. That's a newsletter that I signed up for. That's related to a website I have an account for. Because I'm trying to move forward and simplify everything that I have. I want fewer moving parts on things. Because I've got a background of working in tech, I think a real risk there is that I just overcomplicate things because I can. Yay! So Yeah, there's a free tip for you. You can use one email address for different reasons, different purposes, by adding that plus and then some text after it. So that may help you. I hope it does. So that's me for this week. What am I working on? I'm working on world building. I've following up my homework from the VO Summit, so turning that into tangible actions and starting to execute them. And that's it. That's it for this week, and that's enough. It's a full week. Had a birthday as well. That was wonderful. Happy birthday to me, and thank you for all the wonderful well wishes that I got as well. All right, I'm gonna get out of your hair, but before I do, stay safe, stay well. Life is still a lot out there. Be kind to yourself. I would love to know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Drop me a line. Let me know what's happening with you. All right. Until next time, probably in a fortnight's time, see you soon.